Hey folks, welcome back to Cats and Kilos. I think you'll like tonight's video. It is to answer the age-old question of who would win, Bruce Lee or Chuck Norris in a real fight.
When I hit you with so many rights, you're going to beg for a left.
Now, on each side of the argument, we have the Bruce Lee fans that think Bruce Lee would be anybody at any time, forever and ever and before, right? And then on the Chuck Norris side, we've got people saying that Bruce Lee was never, tested in actual competition, and yet Chuck Norris was a full contact champion, and he was a karate champion, and the actual experience in fighting, full contact. But did he? He did to a point, because point tournaments, which is what he was a point tournament guy. He was a point karate champion. And point tournaments in the old days were a lot different than they are today, and there was admittedly much more contact. However, this is ultimately still what we're talking about. Here's Chuck, he gets a point, things are stopped, the guy's okay, he can continue, but it's a point fighting tournament. So he's in a ring, but this is the ring experience, the actual competition experience that we're saying Chuck Norris has got an advantage because Bruce Lee didn't compete. Is this a real fight? To say that was real fighting, you can't just stop the fight after somebody takes a significant hit. You know what I mean? So what was Bruce Lee known for? Bruce Lee was known for taking on all comers, if you will, off the books, right? Behind the scenes in his movie, somebody wanted to challenge him, he would take him on right there.
All of a sudden, I could just see it in his eyes. I saw his eyes change, and he immediately went into too bad guy, and he kicked the out of this guy. When that was done and he backed off, he smiled, helped the guy up, and said, back up on the wall.
But all these guys would admit, that Bruce Lee was not afraid to take on all comers in a full contact situation where there's no stopping after somebody actually lands something, which is how a real fight goes. This is not real fighting. So the idea that Chuck Norris would have the advantage in that real fighting realm, I think is totally ridiculous.
Did you guys ever go at it in a real situation?
No, I was a professional fighter. I fought professionally, and he was. Bruce was very, very good, but he never fought in the ring.
Really?
No, he never fought in the ring.
Okay.
There's a big difference. Kicking the bag is one thing. Getting in the ring and having someone kicking back at you is a whole different story.
Hey.
So let's put aside the notion that Chuck Norris's real fighting experience is more than Bruce Lee's. I would strongly argue that it was actually the other way around in a real fight type of situation. Size difference. Bruce Lee was known to be around 135 pounds, and Chuck Norris, I think, said at one time that in his fighting shape, he was 155, 160 or something. I can't remember what the exact numbers were. So he wasn't that much bigger than Bruce Lee. And Bruce Lee was significantly more shredded than Chuck Norris, lower body fat percentage, although Chuck Norris himself was in very good shape. So we could take off a little bit of weight for that. Chuck Norris's frame was definitely a little bit bigger than Bruce Lee's, so we could take off a little bit for that. But it starts to even out. So I don't think Chuck Norris would really have had the strength advantage in that. Let's call it even. Some would argue that Bruce Lee was even stronger. Definitely, for his weight, for strength to weight, he was significantly stronger, I would say, right? I don't see that Chuck Norris would be able to do, those thumb push-up type things. Let's just call it even. For the sake of argument, let's just call it even. So then speed advantage. You can't tell me that Chuck Norris had a speed advantage on Bruce Lee. No way, right? So what's left? Chuck Norris would not, in my opinion, have had the advantage in a real fight situation, regardless of his contest record, if you will, right? And he definitely wouldn't have had the speed advantage, and it's very doubtful that he would have had the strength advantage. So he would have had no advantage. Okay, except you might argue that Chuck Norris was not limited to that one thing with striking. He actually has studied judo and is a judo black belt, and I don't know if he was at the time, but he may have been. But Bruce Lee had also studied, grappling. He'd studied with Gene LaBelle, right? And Gene LaBelle was known to be, Judo Gene LaBelle. So, he was familiar with it. And for the sake of argument, even if he gave Bruce Lee the advantage on grappling, which at the time I don't think he would have had, I think Bruce Lee realized that there was other elements to fighting, and he just at least wanted to be able to defend himself against that, and was probably very familiar with how to do so, at least in the context of those days. And I don't think either fighter realized how effective grappling could be from the time that they came from. Fast forward, Bruce Lee then, down the line, also trained with the Gracies, and I think he actually even became a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. So if we fast forward to when they both got older, maybe at a certain point, maybe Chuck Norris would have had the advantage if everything else stayed equal. He would have. But Bruce Lee, I think, would have also evolved along the line, and he would have learned all that stuff also. So if we take him and we move him forward, it's not that he would stay the same. He would also have progressed too. So we can only look at it from the time that they both existed, when we try to make the argument. So based on what I've said, who do I think would win? Would Bruce Lee beat Chuck Norris? Would he really beat Chuck Norris? I believe he would. However, we can't take away the fact that you don't know what's going to happen in a fight. I'm not saying Chuck Norris is a wimp. I think I was a big fan. I am a big fan, and, putting them together, Chuck Norris, I think, has heart too. So you really don't know. The UFC over the years has shown us that. And, the expected fighter sometimes won't win. So there's a possibility. Maybe Chuck Norris would win. So what are the chances? What would I say in a fight? I'd say 5-1 in the favor of Bruce Lee. And I think I'm being somewhat generous to Chuck Norris. Maybe I'm not. Maybe Chuck Norris would win. But 5-1, so 80% chance. I think there's an 80% chance that Bruce Lee would win this one. Bruce Lee versus Chuck Norris, in my opinion, Bruce would take it. All right, so thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to give us a like and subscribe, and join us for more content. There's so much good stuff coming up, including the next video, which we're going to talk about why I think Molson Canadian tastes pretty good nowadays. A bit of a switch, but you're going to want to see it. See you next time.